as well as an instituto. As you watch this event, please keep your Zoom setting on full screen and gallery mode in order to appreciate the artist's intent and the way that they wish their work to be exhibited. And at that point, then I'm just going to leave it to Alejandro de la Guerra and Elyla. Thank you for being here.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you, both of you. And thank you all for joining us today for this live performance and conversation with Nicaraguan artists Elyla and Alejandro de la Guerra. Both artists are fellows under the auspices of the Artist Protection Fund, which provides safe haven to artists under threat. Our thanks go to the APF for their support. I also, of course, want to thank UConn's El Instituto, Institute of Latinx, Caribbean, and Latin American Studies, the Human Rights Institute, and the Department of Art and Art History, and Alyssa Webb for being our tech guru. Alejandro de la Guerra is an interdisciplinary artist, educator, and performer and poet. His work focuses on performative sculptural analyses of the aesthetics of power and resistance, and on the issue of historical memory. Ale's work has been central to some of today's most compelling international exhibitions of Latin American art. Elyla is a non-binary performance artist and activist who has presented work around the world in contexts such as the Hemispheric Institute of Performance and Politics in New York University and at biennials across the Americas, including the renowned Havana Biennial. Elyla is a member and founder of Operación Queer, a Nicaraguan artist activist collective formed to create trans feminist and decolonial aesthetic responses to Latin America's complex reality. After the conversation between Elyla and Ale, we will open to questions from the audience. Please type your questions into the chat function. But before I hand over to them, I want to say a few words about the context out of which Elyla and Ale are working. That is the 1979 Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua, and how the great promise of that revolution has been so badly betrayed. I went to Nicaragua in the late 1980s and spent 4 years watching a country smaller than the size of Boston, this tiny David, hold off the giant US Goliath. That it was able to do so in the face of sustained military attacks by the US-backed Contras and a US economic blockade that devastated the economy, testified to the resolve of Nicaragua's citizens to claim the right to determine their own future. The red and black flag of the Sandinistas became a global symbol of anti-imperialist resistance and utopian hope for revolutionary social change. Nicaragua, and with it the global South, seemed poised finally to overcome the centuries-long legacy of colonialism and Cold War subjugation. But it was not to be. In 1990, Nicaragua succumbed to the US onslaught, but it also fell victim to an internal power grab that betrayed everything the revolution originally stood for. The Cold War tactics of Reagan's United States were despicable but expected. What really turned our hope to anger and cynicism was watching the once revered leaders of the Sandinista revolution increasingly adopt the same authoritarian strongman tactics of the dictatorship they overthrew. In 2018, the new dictatorship of Daniel Ortega and his wife, Vice President Rosario Murillo, sparked massive popular uprisings. And this is the context out of which Elyla and Alejandro work. Those uprisings simultaneously point to Ortega's betrayal of the Sandinista revolution and to renewed citizen energy for reclaiming that revolutionary promise. And with that observation, I will now turn the discussion back over to Alejandro and Elyla.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, everyone. Well, I would like to share my project. The name is La Caída. La Caída, in 2014, I recreated the fall down of the monument of the dictator Anastasio Somoza Garcia, overthrown by the Sandinista revolution in 1979. For me, it was important to introduce myself in the history memory from the fiction and reality, and using the symbol of the power, but especially as soon as the symbol becomes vulnerable. I made an open call to overthrow this monument again, and here is the result.
Abonada con la bendita Nicaragua sangre, de Nicaragua suma dulcita, era llenita de Támaga, pero ahora que ya sos libre, Nicaragua, yo te quiero mucho más, pero ahora que ya sos libre, Nicaragua, yo te quiero mucho más. Vamos a cantar todos. Ay, Nicaragua, la flor más linda de mi querer.
¡Quiero una pata!
Abonada con la bendita.
So I would like to introduce Elyla to show and talk about the symbols. For us, it's very important to mention like a new symbol of the power in our country. Please, Elyla.
Thank you, Ale. Thank you, Ali, and thank you, everyone, for the invitation, everyone at the Human Rights Institute and El Instituto of University of Pennsylvania, Robin, everyone that is involved in making this happen. Alejandro, I think the real performance is going to be like how our skin is going to survive after this. but yeah, we did what we could. So the performance is still going. We'll let you know how the skin survives. I'm going to be speaking a little bit more on what Robin was mentioning on how the Sandinism was hijacked by the current ruling party of Nicaragua, and also the change of aesthetics. So in order for me to do so, let me just go ahead and share some images of this that we can, yeah. Okay, so in order for me to talk about the change of aesthetics from the old Sandinismo to the contemporary way of how Sandinismo is presented by the current government, I have to address Rosario Murillo. Rosario Murillo, which is the wife of Daniel Ortega, and she's also the vice president of Nicaragua. And she designed and directed his government campaign, but this even included changing his historical military clothing for white shirts, in crafting by Hertz hand the false speech that they have regarding love, peace, and reconciliation. This is Daniel Ortega. I'm just giving you guys a picture so you can see how he was using all of these like military clothes that during his times after the Sandinista revolution. Already in power, Murillo used all the available resources to do what she wanted to do with the memory of the Sandinista revolution. Like if she was using a magic wand, they began to remove the monuments created by past governments, including the Peace Park, which symbolizes the end of the war in the 80s, in the end of the Sandinista revolution. They also appropriated the old Managua, the Managua that was destroyed by the terremoto del 72, the 72 earthquakes in Nicaragua that destroyed the main city in Nicaragua. So they reappropriated that, the Malecon, the roundabouts, and all the main venues around the city. This magical change included a new design also for the shield in the Nicaraguan national flag. This way and other ways too, Rosario Murillo began to play with the perception to change how the public space, how we could move through the public space. She also changed what directly the symbols of our nation and began to control the historical memory with symbols such as circles, squares, pyramids, as well as an abundant use of the color magenta, known as rosado chicha in Nicaragua, or and if any of you come to Nicaragua anytime, you'll be able to see that. But it wasn't until the second electoral campaign which Murillo perfected its symbolism brand using trees of life. Oh well, we can see here that when she changed his clothes to a more appealing perception for the public, right? But it wasn't until the second electoral run for them, the campaign, that she really, I guess, like placed like all of her imagination on how she wanted to control and like take over the public space. She created what is called the Trees of Life, which, by the way, resemble very much to the Tree of Life, which is a painting by Gustav Klimt. And this is not photoshopped. This is the real Nicaragua. This is how we live. This is the reality. This is not a Photoshop. Like, we live with those trees like 24/7. That is not photoshopped. That's real. And she began to place these trees of life throughout the whole city, as a symbol of omnipresence. They were everywhere, basically. And this picture is one of the pictures I really like, because you can see how this tree, if you come to Nicaragua, you'll see how this tree, it's way bigger than the Sandinist shadow. So you can see clearly how the icon of the new Sandinism, it's overpowering the old shadow of Sandino. This change, it's a change that Alejandro and I saw happening in our neighborhoods. I lived in the Old Managua, in the Barrio 19 de Julio. We saw those trees being planted. We saw the change of aesthetics in the surroundings of our neighborhood. We saw how the government used this change of aesthetic to control the perception of what was good, and all this discourse of the good life was associated with this bright trip acid moment that she was doing with this. For this, I want to, within this context of living this reality, seeing how the public space was being taken controlled by the government. I want to share a response to that. Alejandro and I would both have done work regarding this, and I want to share one of my pieces that it's called Solo Fantasia, that is in direct response to what I'm speaking about. Alejandro, can you give me a thumbs up? Can you see it, the video? No? Okay, so let me do again. the share screen. Just a moment. We're having a little bit of a technical issue with this before. And okay. Now, can you see? So this is my response to that change that I'm talking about. I will let it play for a little bit and then make a small commentary, and then Alejandro will show something else. So while this is, well, you can see this intervention in the public space, I'm going to be making some commentaries about this piece, that it was made for the Nicaraguan biennial, also the Nicaraguan biennial that Alejandro did a piece La Caída. So in 2014, basically, I was invited for the first time to create an opening performance for the biennial. That will be the first time for me to be introduced as an artist, like as a queer activist artist to like the arts in Nicaragua. It was scheduled to be to open to be the first event to open the biennial, and 4 hours before the performance there was a schedule to begin. I was called by the creator and the biennial coordinator to their office to notify me of the expulsion and exclusion of the work if I decided to do my performance. I was informed then that this was a direct mandate of the government of Rosario Murillo that had left them with no power whatsoever. And I then had to answer them that if I've never asked permission to the government before, why should I start asking now? Because by that time, I had already done a lot of interventions in public space. It was the first time that I was doing within the art scene sphere. And so all the professional equipment supposed to record this performance was taken away. Security, publicity, everything was taken away at that moment, 4 hours before I was scheduled to open to do my performance. The performance consisted in walking in the historical Bolivar Avenue to the Plaza of la Revolucion in front of the acoustic shell where the acts of government in mandate are carried out. Solo Fantasia takes cultural permit from a Nicaraguan ritual that is called Baile de Negras to create a fantasy dress that consists on a visual tour of the aesthetics used by the governments in power in the recent history of the country. Beginning of the button of the dress, it's made out of the colors used in the uniforms by the guards of the Somoza dynasty, bullets, casquillos, military rank stars, and giving space force and violently to the Sandinista revolution, where you can see the iconic shadow of Sandino with the red and black colors of the revolution. And also you can see the conservative white and blue at the top of the dress, where you also see the deconstruction of the national satirical play, El Huehuense, mixed with the kitsch and camp aesthetics of the Rosario Murillo government. I was aiming to claim space for queer bodies and challenge their notions of control and ownership over the revolutionary discourse in the history of our country, taking back power for queer futurity. I realized then that the proximity to disrupt heteropatriarchal cultural narratives through artistic interventions was at a hand's reach. So that's what was a very critical moment for me to start working with cultural practices and also intervening in art spaces. Before I give the next moment to Alejandro so he can speak more on about his practice and what we want to achieve with this presentation, I would like to address the situation, what happened in Nicaragua in 2018. The uprising in 2018, uprisings against the government, uprisings against government social security reforms started in April 2018. This became the deadliest conflict since Nicaragua Sandinist revolution. Artists, activists, farmers, indigenous people, feminists, we were all in the streets. At least 42 people were killed in the first week of the process that we did, most injured by bullet wounds. Nicaraguan police used live ammunition to fire upon demonstrators. 325 were killed as of February 6, 2019. As a result of that government repression of protests, thousands of Nicaraguans have to flee the country looking for asylum or exiled. And it was during this time also that Alejandro and I applied for our APA residency, and I went to do my APF residency in Wagner University. So all of this during this uprising that was happening in Nicaragua, all of the anger that we had against the control of the government was directed to the beautiful tree of lives of the first lady vice president of our country. And we'd just like to show you a little bit of what it was to see that or to live that during that moment. And I'll show you that right now. How we responded to that repression during the uprising in 2018. A lot of us were there taking these trees down.
Son adornos y no vale la pena tenerlos. Necesitamos árboles de verdad, árboles que produzcan oxígeno, agua.
So that's just a small clip of that moment. And now I would like to give it to Alejandro that will show a piece that he did in response to this crisis.
Yeah, thank you. Well, for me, it was very dramatic, the situation, because I never thought before that I could see a new dictatorship in my country. But looks like it's always will be the same. So it's very sad to think about that. So now I would like to show a video. I can say video performance because I use microorganisms of my body, and I take some pictures about from the protest in Nicaragua, and I put my microbials and microorganisms on the picture. Like I collect these microorganisms on my saliva, blood, or urine, sperm, tear, and another dirty things, you know, from my body. So I put this in my microscopy and put a video camera microscopy, and I recorded what's happened with this. And in the edition, I create a narrative like a horror movie, right? So because for me was important to show the horror of what's happening in Nicaragua now. So let me show. So yeah, what's very interesting for me thinking about the narrative of the video, like a horror movie or like Kafka, you know, Frank Kafka, the idea of half animal or half pandemic, or I don't know, you know, and half human. So I thought about that, and for me, what's important, you know, to create this aesthetic, because that we live there, it looks like a fantasy, but also a horror movie. So, and to continue, I would like to let you with Elyla to show the next project.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, baby. Okay, so the next project that I want to show, just like Alejandro showed, a project that was very much like politics, almost a definition of biopolitics, like how much politics can like live in your organism. The way that I responded to that, it was through a different way. Like it's with this project that is called "I Am Not Afraid of So Much Reality," which is a poem, it's a appropriation of a poem that the First Lady wrote that is called "I Am Afraid of So Much Reality." So I just added the "not" part of it, and I will show you that right now, and I'll make a commentary on it once the video is showing. I'm sorry, just a moment. Sorry, just a moment. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I don't know why it's showing a different one. Oh, here. Can you see it, Alejandro? Okay. So this is the project.
Tengo miedo de tanta realidad. Tengo miedo y no sé cómo decirlo. Estoy desprotegida. Rudy Chávez, presente. Mitzia Hackins, presente.
Matías Velázquez, presente. Luis Espinosa, presente. Abelino Guevara Obando, presente. Abraham Antonio Castro Jarquín, presente. Adolfo Enríquez Castellón Arauz, presente. Agustín Ezequiel Mendoza Lira, presente. So the Nicaraguan, the first, Rosario Murillo writes this poem that I'm afraid of so much reality. And the poem, she says that ants are her worst nightmare, stating that these tiny small ants were accusing her of committing some crime. On April 18th, the uprising against the Ortega Murillo, well, as I mentioned, it was the deadliest conflict. But on April 19th, right after the protest started, Murillo called all of the protesters and dissident voices that we were out there protesting, tiny and smalls, just like she calls her the ants that are accusing her of some crime in that poem. So a lot of people that were in the uprising, we took the ants as a symbol of resistance. So on July 19th, 2018, 4 months after like the uprising lasted longer than that. In July 19, 2018, the celebration of the Sandinista revolution is taking place in Managua, Nicaragua. I am in San Francisco. You can see it in the red and with the red and black. After leaving my country due to government persecution and direct death threats, that same day, I walked from the Latino Mission Street to the James Bonds building where the consulate of Nicaragua is located, and I released more than 300 ants at the entrance of the building. I walk while the names of the murdered citizens since the April 18th uprising interrupt Murillo's poem. In this first performance in San Francisco, a red and black queer militant, color of the historic Sandinista party, now hijacked by the Ortega Murillo regime, bring ants to the Nicaraguan consulate. And the second performance in Mexico City, a white and blue queer militant, white and blue, which are the colors used by the April 18th uprising and also by the historic national conservative colonial Nicaraguan party or discourse. This being brings the ants to the Nicaraguan embassy in Mexico. Both of these narratives, the red and black, and the red and black with the patriarchal revolution, because the Sandinista revolution was patriarchal, and the blue and white with their colonial and neoliberal politics have erased the history of resistance of queer bodies systematically. And these two actions aim for critical conversations asking to challenge the foundations of contemporary process of liberations for Nicaragua. So that's the way that I responded in a way to that crisis. And Alejandro is going to show the next project, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes, my next project, the name is Marimba Sangrienta or Bloody Marimba. What's a video? I mean, in Nicaragua, the old man's mask, as well marimba music, are folkloric symbol of the Pacific Coast cultural identity. So it's also the associate with the symbol of resistance of indigenous of Monimbo from Masaya town. For this video performance, I played Ave Maria, which is a favorite song of the tenor and song of Ortega and Murillo. So I wanted to reflect in this video to blood and literally spills throughout the armed violence in Nicaragua. So for me, the idea also was to take an idea of ritual sacrifice by the pagan gods. So the blood for me, it's more like a ritual, no, like a sacrifice and religion. So I would like to show video now. So the video is in a slow motion because for me it was important to recreate this feeling of the durability of the crisis and you know, the conflict in Nicaragua, because it's very long, very slow, and you never, I mean, you can't imagine when it will end. So it's for that reason that I use the slow motion in this video. Also because for me it was important to modify the song. So the video is pretty long, so I would like just to show some part of the video, and you could understand what it's happened, you know. And also for me, what's very important, communicate, I mean, what's to be very directly and, you know, literally, because the violence is literally. So for me, it was important to do that. But to put in contrast, this celestial, or I don't know who do you say celestial, but it's like a Christian song, you know, and how the government can say that they are Christians. So, but in contrast with the violence that they use for the protesters. Okay, let's go to the next video. So now we are working in different ways because for us also it's important change, you know, because the things are changed now. So if you continue working the same, you can, you know, go to put your work in a deep other ideas. So now we are trying to work in different aesthetic ways. So I would like to let you with Elyla.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna keep it short and cute. Um, yeah, so basically what we're thinking, when Alejandro and I were thinking about, like, how are we creating artwork from within these power structures that we, as you can see, as literally they forced us to leave our countries. Like, how do we go from there? What is our, or how do we create artwork, and what is the sense of political resistance in that artwork? How do we create now? Like, what's the next journey from us, you know, as artists, each one in their own path. So having said that, during the residency, I started to work on what I call well, what's going to be my first solo exhibit that wasn't able to happen in the States, in Bogota University because of COVID, but it's going to happen here in Nicaragua. For this exhibit, I'm proposing a new term for me to identify how I identify myself, which is barro mestiza. Just a quick general introduction of what mestizo or mestizaje means. The terms pretty much means mixed race, but mestizaje has been used by the Pacific-centric colonial narrative, nationalist narrative, to erase any indigenous history within the Nicaraguan territory and within our bodies. So it is a way that it is neocolonialism at its best, and for me it was important in a way that I was creating very much political work that was almost like guerrilla street type of artwork, and it was like, okay, I wanted to like really back a little bit and take care of my spirit in a way with this journey of how do I name myself and how do I create artwork from a space that is honest and that is also challenging the notions of what's the nation and how the nation defines itself through these cultural ideas and identities, right? So Barro Mestiza, it's a queer revision of the Nicaraguan folklore that explores the meaning of mestizaje in my own lived experience. It's a current obsession to disrupt these hegemonic cultural narratives in order to reclaim queerness as ancestral memory and knowledge. Weaving from these different spaces, my work, it's right now a research territory where I create new imaginaries and aesthetics that are intersecting with art, but not only with art, but it's also with activism and with life itself, because I'm still alive and I'm queer and I'm still in Nicaragua. So I want to show you a little bit of this video, which is one of the latest videos that I did for the project Barro Mestiza. And okay. Oops, no, sorry. Can you see the video, Alejandro? No? I'm so sorry, I keep having issues with this. I apologize. There we go. This piece is called Total, in where I create a ritual where I do an encounter with I'm naming myself as mestiza, and the person that is working with me is an indigenous queer dancer from Monimbo, and it's the encounter of these two ways of being, and me trying to ask this person, how do I reclaim my ancestry as a mestiza? If I have been constructed as a mestiza, what way of understanding identity, and it's kind of a love letter between one that has can you hear me? Video? Can you hear the video? Can you hear me? Okay, so I was saying that it's a love letter between Can you hear? Okay, so I'm gonna turn down the volume so you can hear me completely. So I was saying that it's a love letter. It's an encounter between a queer person like me that is trying to reclaim my queerness as an ancestral knowledge and understand my identity as something beyond as this mestizo narrative that is very colonial, and give space to me to explore that. So this is a dance with a queer indigenous person from Monimbo, and we have a conversation surrounding identity and the access to ancestry through queerness. And in this performance, through dance, I explore this relationship, and it's something that we say also. I'm going to end in it right now. It's also something that we say that that in order for us to be born again as queer people, we also have to like set ourselves on fire, and to start fresh and to start new. This is the constant renewal, but not in a way of mestizaje that dilutes everything, but in a way of reclaiming our memory. The last moment, that's the encounter between the dancer, indigenous dancer from Monimbo, and a queer person constructed as a mestiza, now reclaiming barro mestiza as a new word to explore queerness as an ancestral memory. And it's the moment where this I am lit on fire for in order to create this ritual where I try to explore what that means. So that's basically it. And you can see until, yeah, the exhibit until when it's done. Okay. And now after that, I think Alejandro will show the last project that he's working on, in order for us to end this, which is the way that we are now creating artwork.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I would like to talk about my next big project. It's when I was in the lockdown, I mean in the quarantine for I don't know how long time was that, but I thought about why it's important to do art, or why it's important to be artist. And I spent a lot of time about that. And at the end, I thought that why I changed my question, and I thought about if I don't have art, the life is not be important for me. So because for the pandemic was, I mean, all this idea, all your reference fall down, you know. So what's important for me to put the center of the art, it's important. So and try to change the aesthetic and the importance of the art in the life and our communities. So this is a new project. The name is Disarmament project. It's a anti-gun violence project with the objective is to disarm communities in the United States. When I came here, I could see a lot of people buy and using guns. And we know about the big problem that the Americans people have with the guns violence, but also we have a lot of problem with that. And we had in the past a lot of problem with the war, and we had a disarmament after the revolution lost. So I would like, I try to put a parallelism between the conflict in Nicaragua and the conflict here in the United States, because I could see some same situation, you know, and the violence is the same for us. I remember a song of Brazilian singer that said, cuando el dolor es el mismo, el dolor is the same, the heart is the same for all. So the project is still working, and the idea is to create a monument, but the first part of the project is try to disarm the community. So we are working in that now. And after that, after collect and disarm people, the idea is to create the monuments with the support of the Contemporary Art Gallery of UConn, El Instituto, Human Rights Institute, and APF, among others. And for more information, please contact Human Rights Institute. So I would like to show what I am talking about. So this is the proposal of the project. It will be a monument with real guns, and the track is also the real track. So I would like to put this in dialogue about the idea of paramilitaries that attack people and the protests with trucks. And also you can see some parallels here in the United States or in other countries. So, well, I would like to, now I would like to let you open question, or if Robin want to join us to continue with the presentation, will be great.
Thank you, both of you. This is really wonderful, and it's really so great to see the different facets of your work, and to see how you've been responding to the current situation that is so difficult in Nicaragua. And I see that actually I'd like to open with a question from Sam Martinez, because I think it responds very well to your last presentation there, Ale. Y bueno, la pregunta en español es sus experiencias de salir de Nicaragua y vivir fuera de ella han cambiado la forma en que entiendes su país y su lugar en ella? Have your experiences of leaving Nicaragua and living outside changed the way you understand your country and your place in it? Y me parece que responde muy bien la pregunta a tu última obra, Alejandro.
Yes, I mean, it's hard and difficult to thinking about, don't think about your country, you know, and also it's very hard remember always this, because all things could be the same, or you can't create connection with the problem in your countries, and you can see, oh, why this can do possible in my country, you know? Yeah, oh, this is because we have a big dictatorship. So sometimes you can see this, you know, the difference, and yeah, I don't know, I'm not sure if I need to answer a question about that, because the work it's in process now, but the idea is the real idea is maybe in the future to disarm the paramilitaries in Nicaragua. So here in the United States, it's just a test, but the idea is come back and try to disarm people there.
Elyla, how would you respond to that question of how your experience outside the Nicaragua has changed your vision of Nicaragua as well as your own work?
Well, yes, it has. It has definitely throughout, like since the very beginning that I started traveling. It's seeing other people's ways of creating work, seeing how meeting other people, meeting other artists. It changes in a way of how you can ask new questions of what can be possible, you know, in your own territory. Because if you know different realities, then you're like, oh, so this is something that could be available for us, like if we wanted it, because you know it depends on where you go. so it has broadened my perception of what can be done, of what utopia I can imagine with my work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that idea of utopia is an important one, and one that I think we can come back to in some of the other questions that I see appearing. Please, everyone, send in your questions in the Q&A section of your screen. I have another question here that comes out of previous talks that we've had, when you describe, both of you describe the difference between sort of my generation experience of Nicaragua and the revolution, and including your own parents' experience of the revolution and your generation's experience of it. So it's very clear that both of you use symbols and slogans and images that were first generated by the Sandinista revolution itself. So one could say that the revolution left you and your fellow Nicaraguans with a powerful cultural repertoire for combating dictatorships, a set of cultural tools that you learned in schools from your families, you know, about the history, that sort of official history of the revolution. And now we see you, your fellow artists, activists, and protesters using those same symbols and slogans against the Ortega Murillo regime. And I'm really struck by this double irony. First, the Ortega Murillo perversion of the Sandinista revolution's legacy and symbols for their own power. And then second, that the Ortega Murillo regime has unwittingly taught your generation how to resist it, how to use the regime's own rhetoric and image tactics against it. So I was wondering if you could comment a little bit on this irony, on this strategy of using the regime's symbols against it.
I think it becomes so much of an irony because it's such a recent history. Like we're pretty much telling it to our parents. We're like, our parents were part of that, and we're like, hey, you did that, but what about this? Like what about this? Or what's the, at the very beginning when I started working with the symbols of the Frente Sandinista Liberación Nacional, it was very much me denouncing or telling my parents, like, why didn't the revolution include like queer rights? But it was a very naive question. You know, we're like fighting a huge dictatorship. It at that moment I was like, okay, like now I know everything that when happened during the process of the Sandinista liberation process for women, for feminism, for queer activism. It was very much complex. But for me, it was like, if you did this for freedom, why I don't have freedom, you know? So there's so much, like, also there's so much trauma for a lot of our generation that it's like kind of like passed down from our parents, because also our parents, like, most of them don't like to talk about it or don't like to like really go there. So so yeah, I've used a lot of that rhetoric, but also something that we're very personally, I'm very tired of it. Like I'm like, I never want to see again these colors. Like after this presentation, I never want to see this. I'm tired of this binary of like this historic, like black and red and blue and white. I'm tired of this binary. We have to start creating artwork that pushes a reality that goes beyond that. So yeah, there's an irony because it's a conversation that it's like I feel like it's happening with our parents, like live, and it's, yeah, it's, there's so much that it's like present in it, you know.
That's really a very powerful answer. Alejandro, do you want to comment as well?
Yeah, I think also sometimes we feel tired to work with that symbols because I mean, it's the same sometimes the same color, the power, but also for me it's important. I mean, to say that the revolution ended in the 19th, so it's for that reason that I work with the memorize of the, you know. So now this government don't have any relation with the past revolution. I mean, the majority of protesters are Sandinistas, you know. Mm-hmm. That is because the new government don't have, I mean, it's more like a ultraderecha or, you know, right government than a revolutionary government. So yeah, I think that's just, I would like to say that the symbols for us are tools, but because we will like, we need to change the symbols, we need to intervene the symbols and try to, to thinking another way about the old and the new symbols of the power.
Mhm, mhm. We have, thank you for that. We have some other questions. Let's see. We have from Renaldo Lastre. I'm not going in order. Un saludo para los artistas. Me gustaría saber cómo sienten su lugar o su espacio en el contexto artístico de Nicaragua. ¿Se puede decir que hay un mapa artístico amplio que opera en el terreno político o todo lo contrario?
Dale, Alejandro. I think, well, we both might have very different opinions because Alejandro has a different, of course, different experience of what I have within the artistic map in Nicaragua, which is this big. So it's not very big. How much?
With this symbol, please.
It's not very big. How political it is? No comments. No comments to that. I believe that more political art is necessary. By political art, I mean more art that is creating new reflections and new ways of understanding life in Nicaragua. And for me specifically, art without activism as a Central American, it's like, what are you doing? So that's me. But there's other people that they like very much like to be just like contemporary artists and do all of that. But for me, it's completely different. Like and everyone is like pushing whatever they believe it's the right way for them to create art.
So we have a question that bridges off that a little bit from Gabriel Perez, who asks a kind of a similar thing. In what ways do you think the museum or the art gallery or even the art school need to change, need to mutate in Nicaragua in order better to represent and incubate radical Central American artistic projects?
Yes, for me, it's like we need to have community museums. In Central America, just galleries or just museums to work in a conservative way, just presenting, like, that's fine, go ahead and do that. But like the way that I think that we should be moving forward is through communal museums or community museums, which is a way of like really creating art that integrates the people, that integrates the community. So I think that's the way, like changing all art schools or art galleries or art museums to a more communal, approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, anarchist approach.
Alejandro, do you want to respond? I know I have a response to that.
I want to hear it.
Oh, nothing that we here in the United States where we are right now, at least I'm in the United States right now, could definitely listen to your answer and hear the kind of power. I mean, I think we respond well to the power of your answer, this idea of grassroots, ground up communal community organizing rather than the kind of elitist top down. And that's been really a very strong dialogue, quite stiff here in the United States for a while, but it has really gained some force, especially in relation to the social justice protests that we've been seeing here. So the coming together of efforts to decolonize the museum and decolonize public space altogether has been something that's been very moving here in the United States as well as elsewhere. So, Alejandro.
Yes, I would like to say this in Spanish because, yeah, I need a little bit help with the translate. Para mí, creo que voy a responder un poco las dos preguntas. Uno tiene que ver con el contexto, digamos, la comunidad de arte. Yo sí creo que somos una comunidad bien unida. Lo hablo desde mi experiencia y bueno, Elyla también, y bueno, venos acá trabajando juntos, pero también somos parte de un colectivo que no es una institucionalización como de una academia de las bellas artes, donde se gradúan grandes artistas y bueno, todos fueron a Yale y se reúnen en otro lugar, etcétera, sino que es una comunidad bien pequeña y que viene de diferentes mundos, pues, o sea, de la sociología, el cine, el teatro, y eso nos hace únicos, pues, dentro del contexto en Nicaragua.
I don't know if should we try to translate that or maybe we'll just leave it because I think our audience actually is quite bilingual. Es súper interesante eso de la idea de una comunidad no institucionalizada, exactamente. Y that's a comment that I think we could learn a lot from, actually.
Y entonces yo creo que eso de no tener instituciones o academia establecida nos hace ser lo que somos y lo que hacemos. Tenemos la libertad de hacerlo. Y nuestra manera de aprender es una manera, digamos, a la fuerza, a la vida, pues, ¿no? Y no, se nos es difícil, pero también tenemos esa libertad de poder decir y hacer lo que queramos.
That's interesting, and I can see lots of parallels, for instance, with the artists I work with in Mexico from the 1990s, when they were also working out really outside institutions. Let's go on, and we have a number of comments here. I see Kenzie Cornejo in the audience, who says, thank you both, Elyla and Ale, very powerful work. Could you speak a bit on the type of artistic and artivist collaborations and organizations the situation in Nicaragua has brought forth? And has there been a response of solidarity from artists outside Nicaragua?
Creo que I think that there's a moment right now, I think, that we're living of a lot of Central American solidarity, specifically, because most of the conversations that happen within art, academia, everywhere, it's north-south, and Central America is always like, oh, where are we? Like, what? We're never included. So, like, so there's a lot of Central American solidarity saying, like, hey, like, we need to stick together, and like, it's not looking for Central American essentialism, but like really to support each other. So there is several organizations, a lot of organizations in Central America they're not institutionalized. They're like independent collectives, independent groups. And we collaborate all the time. We create projects all the time between Central American organizations, and we're not institutions. We manage to get one fund from here and there, even do it with our own money. We do whatever we can. But it's something very present. I do feel it, at least, for example, with Operación Queer, with the collectives that I work with, we have put a lot of effort in creating Central American solidarity. Now, outside of that, it's a lot difficult because, you know, it's very difficult for, just to create a more like trans-frontiers connection, because you know, there's everyone is trying to like do whatever they can in their own territory. But within Central America, at least, or in Nicaragua, there are a lot of organizations. There are just collectives like Operación Queer that are doing amazing projects. Alejandro was part of one that that was working for several years. So there are several other projects, artistic spaces or feminist spaces, and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Alejandro, do you want to add in there? Or shall we go on?
Yeah, just to, I would like to say that when we respond when we are saying context. So we work together when we can see some similar contexts. For example, so now we are working together with communities in Cuba and also now in El Salvador, because the political context now it's very weird, and seems like Ortega with the new president. So sometimes when we can see this reflect, this can move us to working together.
So we have just one or two last questions, I think, time for. This one is from Milagros Terán, who is asking about the question, the issue of mestizaje, and your definition of it, and whether mestizaje is really a dilution or perhaps something else. And this person is Milagros is asking this in relation to perhaps the idea of a new ethnic group, La Raza. If anything, we are stronger, not diluted, is the comment there. So the question around mestizaje, do you see this as a dilution, or how could it be? How could we come from a position of strength?
Yeah, that idea of like, it's a new thing. It's very much the new mestiza, like Gloria Osendia proposal of with La New Mestiza or La Nueva Mestiza, which is this new way of understanding. We can agree to disagree, Milagros. I think that we have to look at mestizaje critically and through a lens of a narrative that it's very much colonial. That's my opinion. You can have a very much different opinion as your experience of, I don't know, what's your understanding of where you live. Each territory has a different understanding of mestizaje and what that means, and how that has been used by their governments and by their nations to constitute an identity. So it's going to depend very much on the territory. In Nicaragua, it has been used to create an identity, and that identity erases any traces of indigenous history. That for me is colonial at its best. So I cannot sit here and say that I am fine with mestizaje. I know that I'm constructed within this modern colonial understanding of identity, but that doesn't mean that I cannot propose a new way of being.
Alejandro, do you want to take on this question at all? You get the last word, Alejandro.
Yeah, no, I think it's not my way, but I think that we have a lot of to do, a lot of to do, and a lot of to think, and it's not, I mean, it's just the beginning, you know? So it's just the beginning, and it's difficult, can't see the layers about that.
There's just to finish, even just mestizaje, it's very much Pacific centristic. What happens with the Caribbean in Nicaragua? It's like, so it's so complex. And as Alejandro is saying, it's the beginning of a conversation. When I was starting to do this project from a new thing, it was because of that. It was like, we're not speaking about this enough as Central America. What is mestizaje for us? Like, what does it really mean? So I am happy, Milagros, that we can start a conversation regarding that.
Thank you, both of you. I think we're coming to the end of the session here. So before the camera suddenly stops on us, I think I want to call Sam Martinez back in and say thank you to both of you for a really fascinating conversation, as well as our thanks to the audience for a set of really great comments and questions. So Sam, would you like to say a few final words?
Very briefly, thank you again, Elyla and Alejandro, for these ponencias that have shed important light not only on the actual situation in Nicaragua, pero también su historia de composición social. These are all intertwined elements. We look forward so much to seeing what's coming out of the exciting directions that your art is taking in the next few years. And let me echo Robin's thanks to the sponsors again, the IE Artist Protection Fund, the Human Rights Institute here at the University of Connecticut, and of course, thanks to everyone who was here and to our moderator, Robin Greeley. This is a fascinating session, and we look forward to much more from you, Elyla and Alejandro, in the years to come. So on behalf of everyone, stay well and keep in touch with us.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Brilliant. Great.
Thank you. Bye.